Howdy, I am Charlie Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk about two things you're never supposed to talk about, politics and religion. And I'm talking to people who the media doesn't want to talk to at all because they express a point of view that they are against. Who's they? Well, the left. The left, you can encapsulate into one big group of people, and that is someone who wants to fight against everything that we stand for as conservatives. I'm also a Christian, a follower of Christ Jesus. That's most important in my life. So I try and vote with biblical values in mind. And those are the people I search out. Those are the people I want to talk to and support. I have an author on the book today. His name is Dr. Stanley Ridgely. And I asked him, well, what do you want me to call you, sir? You want me to call you a professor or a doctor or captain? He's also served in the Army. And he said, how about Stan? I like that. Very smart individual. I like talking to people who are smarter than me, which I'm just a good old boy from Bakersfield. So that's not really raising the bar very high. But I'm looking forward to what he has to say and hearing about his books. Brutal Minds and DEI Exposed. I I can't wait to hear what Brutal Minds is all about, but DEI Exposed, that is definitely something I want to get into. So we will here on Do Not Talk. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for supporting and sharing these shows. Facebook deleted all of my platforms about 3.5 months ago now, and Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, because I violated some kind of community standard that they did not bother explaining what it was. I've written wherever I could find an address of anything that has to do with Meta. I've written what's going on. Why did this happen? How can we correct this? But suddenly 40,000 people are gone. I can't let them know when I have new shows. So you sharing these shows, we're still growing. We're still doing better and better all the time. Almost 4,000 followers just on Rumble alone, rumble.com/do not talk. Thank God for Rumble, because YouTube has pulled shows, deleted shows, threatened me, put strikes against me. I don't know how long that's going to last. YouTube, owned by Google, by the way. YouTube's the biggest search engine, not Google, YouTube in the world. Google is second. So they own that monopoly of all that information. You want to do a test on Google, just put in Trump great president and watch what happens. You'll have page after page after page of horrible, negative, nothing but bad. You'll get to about the third, fourth, fifth, and nobody goes that deep when they're doing any kind of online search through Google, especially. You'll finally find something that's positive. You don't see Fox News appear. You don't see Newsmax. You don't see One American News stories appear you don't see yournews.com stories appear about Trump being a great president, President Trump. That's just a good test to show you exactly how much they are monitoring what information we get. And I have a problem with that. Then you add the whole DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are the litmus tests for whatever you are going to be able to serve in tremendous positions of power. I mean, we have a couple of Supreme Court justices now that were obvious DEI hires when Biden literally said, I'm going to put in a black woman. That's your criteria? How do you explain that? DEI. Oh, DEI. Okay, well, then I guess it's okay. No, it's not okay. It's a horrible thing what's been happening. If you take it to the next level, how far are you going to go with your DEI hires? Well, we've seen a plethora of bad pilots being hired for people's lives are in danger because of this whole we have to follow the DEI criteria. Well, thank God for President Trump. Thank God that we were able to overwhelmingly elect him for a second term, albeit with Biden thrown in the middle of it, because that's reversing. That's reversing. And people, I think, are starting to wake up and say, maybe that wasn't the smartest hiring criteria. DEI Exposed and Brutal Minds author Dr. Stanley Ridgely is on Do Not Talk. before I bring him in real quick, I wanted to ask you to please go to my website and purchase some of my merchandise. I got a merch store. Look at this mug right here. Let's talk about politics and religion on Do Not Talk. This is a big old 15-ounce mug. Of course, it's red. And this hat right here, charliesimons.com. That tells you where you can find that merch store, charliesimons.com, CharLeeSimons.com. Got all kinds of hats and shirts and mugs, fun things. And I'm already seeing Christmas stuff in stores. So I guess it's not too early for me to say Christmas gifts at charliesimons.com. Okay. Get one of these. It's a great mug. And I appreciate your support so much, more than you know. All right, let's get to it. Dr. Stanley Ridgely on Do Not Talk. Hit it. Hey, Stan, what's up?
Hey, Charlie, how you doing? It's good to be here.
I'm borderline amazing, thank you. Are you a East Coaster? Are you over on the East Coast?
I'm on the East Coast right now. Don't forgive me for that. But I'm based in Jacksonville, Florida now, working up in Philadelphia.
I'm not going to forgive you for that. I think that's great. I mean, all my friends are leaving California in droves, and I'll call them and I'll try and keep up with them and find out what's going on with them, and if they're happy that they made that move. And overwhelmingly, it's always yes. And in Jacksonville, you have access to one of my favorite restaurants of all time, the Waffle House.
Well, Waffle House is great. As soon as my diet permits me to go there and partake. But Jacksonville is in Florida, the free state of Florida. You'll see it on the signs as you come into the state. And doggone glad to be here.
Do you have any signs like I'm seeing when I go to Idaho, Wyoming, Montana? It says, "Don't California our state."
Well, that's a big problem here. I moved to Jacksonville recently from Philadelphia. Thank goodness for that. And, a lot of people down here recognize the Northerners, the transplanted Northerners who continually complain that it's not like the place that they left, and they want to try to transform Florida into the kind of place where they left. So it's an ongoing problem.
It is a weird mindset to me.
Yeah.
I have ruined where I live, so I'm going to move somewhere that's nicer, but I'm going to do everything I can to try and ruin that as well. It's bizarre. It's like
they don't recognize. They have no self-awareness. They don't recognize that they played a role in, worsening the state or the city where they lived, and then they got out, and now they want to continue their bad habits in their new environments. It's terrible.
Your biography, you've been dubbed the rock star professor. I
like that. I like that talk. Go ahead, continue.
I will. I could just read it right now. Dr. Stanley Ridgely is one of those great courses professors the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post have dubbed a rock star professor, a presenter of strategic thinking, the $1 million bestseller video course published by The Great Courses. Dr. Ridgely is a staunch defender of individualism and enlightenment values in the university as the best defense against the seduction of authoritarians, charlatans, political posers, and noxious ideologues of every sort. You're a clinical professor of management at Drexel University, LeBeau College of Business, and holds a doctorate and master's degree in international relations from Duke University and an international MBA from Temple University. You also studied at Moscow State University and the Institut de Gestion Sociale in Paris. What was that like? What was that like being in those two countries and studying there?
Well, I've been to Russia about 20 times. I speak Russian, and I studied at Moscow State University, living in the dorm, as a matter of fact, because I like the authentic Russian experience as well as the authentic French experience. And very eye-opening, and certainly gives you different perspective on our perceived enemies, friends, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's an awful lot. We could do an entire show if you'd like on that experience. But I'm concerned right now about DEI and its debilitating effect on our universities.
So am I. Let's talk about that. How free have you felt to preach or teach, not preach, but teach the way you believe at Drexel University?
Well, I felt incredibly free because it's freedom is a matter of mindset. The idea of a chilling effect, or you're going to self-censor because what some hierarchy has told you, or what some sort of Overton window that has been placed upon you. I kind of ignore that sort of thing, and I learned a while back that if you don't stay true to yourself, it's like that fairy tale, or I should say, a kid's story about the little kid who said the emperor has no clothes. I mean, the ability to speak truth and speak truth to this so-called power is incredibly liberating whenever you decide to do so. And you find out that the power ranged against you is really powerless. And I think that whenever you have to understand, and you have to be buttoned up as far as substantiating what you're saying, what you're believing. You can't just, mouth off, which a lot of professors who are unqualified tend to do. But once you're buttoned up and you're backstopped with research, knowledge, and history and facts, then there's really nothing to fear. So I felt no hindrance whatsoever in speaking my mind and speaking.
Perhaps not from your employer, but how about other professors?
Well, the professors, some of them they ignore me, they avoid me, they don't speak to me. A lot of them speak to me, on the sly, coming by my office and tell, hey, right on, that kind of thing. But are folks who simply don't want to. It's not that they fear anything. It's they just don't. That's not their bailiwick. You have to have a strong stomach to do this kind of thing and participate in the public debates that are flooding our headlines on a daily basis. Other professors, they've got their research to do. They've got their teaching to do. A finance professor probably doesn't want to get into the whole DEI thing. A marketing professor, an accounting professor. The problems really arise in the faculty over on what I call the soft side of campus, which is sociology, the humanities, history, that kind of thing. That's where the problems lie. Education schools are the worst.
What do you mean?
I mean, they're the worst because the education schools are the source of a lot of the noxious ideology that pervades higher education. If you're looking for the source of where the people who learned what they learned about this noxious ideology of DEI and, of course, social justice, they learned it in schools of education. Now, I'm referring to the bureaucracy on the college campuses, people who are advisors and coordinators and various deanlets and assistants and folks who are in the dormitories as resident assistants, people we don't really think about. People who certainly off the campus don't really think about. Well, who are these people and why are they important? Well, to a person, they're usually left wing, and I mean radical left wing, because this is what they've learned in education schools, which are basically some of the worst outfits on the college campuses. This is not just me talking. This is the general perception of them, and certainly as the source of a lot of the noxious doctrine that we find in our K through 12 schools. Because the education schools are the ones training the teachers. And we've kind of neglected education schools over the years, much to our disadvantage. And so now we find our schools and our school boards flooded with left-wingers. And the bitter fruits of our neglect are coming to really make us aware of the negativity that we find in our schools.
We don't realize that we can actually run to be part of the board of directors for colleges. We don't realize that, so we don't. And but the left loves to have little positions of power, however powerful they may be. As somebody who's a dorm advisor, I think you call them. I don't know what that is, but somebody telling you where the restrooms are and when the cafe is going to be open.
See, that's what we would think. That's what we would think. But they have incredible power because they basically rule over the milieu of where students live. They conduct required indoctrination sessions, seminars, that kind of thing. And this is part of their whole shtick. This is written down. They engage in what is called milieu management. And this means messaging that left-wing ideology 24/7. Now, they really can't impact students, all the time. But when you've got when you dominate where they live by virtue of this resident assistance, and the places where they eat on campuses and in the classrooms and in the advising realm, this is pretty much 95% of what students do and how they occupy their time. So that's a pretty tight control over that milieu. Yeah.
It could be as simple as what do you think about, and fill in the blank, something that President Trump has done, let's say, then they hate it and
Yeah.
they're dead set against it and they're looking for you to agree with them. As just a student, oftentimes we don't want to make waves. Now, I did, and I paid the price with my political professor when I was in college because I would challenge him on things, and he didn't like that, and he really made it tough on
Oh,
me. That was one of my first beginnings of, wow, here's what happens when you actually speak your mind in a place where you're supposed to be able to speak your mind. You can, as long as it agrees with them. But it's just simple coercion that way. And a lot of students are like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat, so I'll just agree with it. And then next thing you know, um, it's sad. I wish more people would stand up. It's courageous is contagious, but oftentimes when it comes to a student, you're going to be ostracized. They're going to, exclude you from things and from
yeah.
activities and so on. So it's easy to be on the left. It's easy, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly so. I think I like that phraseology, CharLee. I'm going to borrow that. It's easy to be on the left. You have an incredible support structure. The entire scaffolding of higher education supports you in what you do. If you want to protest, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Most people don't realize that the university or college will fund a student activism of the right sort. Bryn Mawr College is one of these that actually advertises it on their website, and you can go to other colleges and universities. You can receive money reimbursement to go to a protest, to pay for your travel. But it has to be the right kind of protest, the right kind of activism. You won't find any college or university funding you to go to a Second Amendment rally, or to fund a free speech rally that is sponsored by one of the nefarious groups such as Turning Point or Young America's Foundation or Intercollegiate Studies Institute. You won't find that kind of funding, but you will find lavish funding, both in student government and in the general bureaucracy of a college or university. They will fund your kind of activism. So it is easy to be on the left. It's reinforced all the time through this whole milieu management. You have to be really strong morally, intellectually, religiously on a college campus to maintain that North Star that guides you throughout the college career. There's lots of folks on the campus, great and small, powerful and not so powerful, subtle and overt, that are trying to attack and change your belief system. And that's what I mean by my title of my book, Brutal Minds. These are folks who are quite brutal, and they are actively working to transform you as a student, to transform your belief system, and to transform higher education as a whole. In fact, that's the motto of one of these groups called it's a student affairs group, boldly transforming higher education. They're not faculty. They're student affairs bureaucrats, functionaries, apparatchiks, but they have deemed themselves worthy of transforming higher education from what? Traditional Enlightenment education, marketplace of ideas, to a tightly controlled crucible of indoctrination where a certain body of received truths holds sway. And their job is to train the cadres for the struggles of the future. And that's a quote from a Marxist theorist by the name of Frederick Jameson, training cadres for the struggles of the future in, say, communism, Marxism, or the more general social justice.
What I really hate is when they use the students to make their point. When they use their students to show up in mass, they're encouraging. This happened to me when I was in junior high school, and there was a strike going on, and the teachers, one of the teachers was telling the students where to show up for a protest, to be there, out there with them on this line. And I even at the time, I thought, well, that's not right. This is your battle, and you're getting paid to instruct. What's that again?
They see nothing wrong with this. This is part of their mission. they elevate themselves in their own minds as part of the whole narcissistic working for social justice that they imbibed at that education school, wherever they went to college, that your job is to train students for the social justice struggles of the future, to take a side, a political side. They don't see it as taking a political side in a disputed argument on an issue. They believe that the arguments have already been made, and the only thing left to decide is how we're going to engage and change society to match.
If you're going to get in line.
Right. Getting in line, that reminds me of something my wife told me whenever she was going to get another advanced degree at my university in education. And when she was there, she looked at a PowerPoint display they had, and there were two people that were talking about getting a degree in education, advanced degree in education. And one of the instructions they said, what you tell young people, you tell the white kids to get in the back of the line. She said, what? I said, yeah, part of this is to, whenever you have an event or an activity, you make the white kids get in the back of the line. So what kind of nonsense is this? This is out and out discrimination. Why are you doing this? What's the rationale behind this? Why would you even think of doing that, much less actually do it? And she got a nondescript, oh, no, that's not what we're saying. That's not what it is what you're saying. It's right there.
Exactly what you're saying. You just said it.
This is how they live. No, this is not part of it. This is
what I just said is not what I'm really saying.
Well, exactly. Whenever you catch them on something like that, suddenly it recedes in importance. It wasn't important. It's not important. It's not what we do. But if it's not so, then why is it there to begin with? So this is what students find on the college campus. You find this out front probe, if you will, this forward-thinking centering of nonsense and doctrinaire ideology. But when you challenge it, many times they'll withdraw. Oh, no, we don't mean that. This is not really something. We're not trying to indoctrinate you. We're just simply providing you new information. I want to say something to you, CharLee. This is how I read this stuff all the time because I'm preparing my next book. I'm not going to tell you the title because it's such a good doggone title that I don't want to spill the beans.
You to steal it.
No, I don't. It's just no. I don't want to spill the beans on it. But what it is basically they are sticking themselves out there. Say, and then they withdraw very quickly. They even say in the literature, I read this, they say, well, we're not trying to indoctrinate anyone. I read an article just yesterday on this. At the very end of the article, after it was an article on how to indoctrinate your students. And they say you're going to face resistance from your students, and you're going to try this, you can try that, you can batter them down with this, batter them down with that. Then they said at the very end of the article, well, we're not trying to indoctrinate anyone, and it's every student's right to resist what we're saying. That's what this is what the article says, and I assure you it's going to appear in my next book. They actually say that.
With consequences. And with consequences.
Yes.
We as students know that. We know that.
We've done our best. We've done our best to batter you down, change your belief system, but you continue to resist. Their words, not mine. Continue your resistance. Well, you have a right to resist, and we don't have any right to indoctrinate anyone. They actually it's almost like a disclaimer at the end of a contract, it's a hold harmless clause. Well, we're not trying to indoctrinate anyone. They say at the end of a long indoctrination article on how to go about doing it. I'll tell you, CharLee, there's one article I read just the other night where they have a whole list of objections that students will make to a particular argument and how to batter down this element of resistance. If a student says this, then this is how you address that. If a student says that, this is how you address that without actually addressing or acknowledging that the student may have a point. And so I think this is critical information that a student really ought to have when you go into a classroom. Parents ought to know this as well. Number one, that their teachers are being trained this way, that they're not really interested in hearing what you have to say. They're interested in battering down and destroying what you have to say to change your mind to their way of thinking.
It's not a counter argument, which is what
Right.
we'll do the same on the right. We'll go, well, here's some counter arguments to when they say this, and here's some questions to ask to get them to maybe think a different way. It's battering down, as you've said several times, is exactly what that is. And they let you know, same in the media, I mean, brother, I could tell you stories about how they let you know
Please.
your job is in jeopardy if you don't step right in line or if you dare to ask the wrong kind of question on our platform of media, radio or television or print. 99% of those in the media are fully ensconced on the left, and
Oh, yeah.
is every bit as bad in the teaching profession, I'm quite sure.
Well, I think that my undergraduate degree many, many years ago was in journalism, and so I actually worked for a newspaper for 3 years. And I can speak from how journalists are trained. I can speak to the issue of what you find amongst journalists is you have what is called groupthink. Now, groupthink is a concept
Oh,
that
yeah.
came out of the late '60s by Irving Janis, a psychologist. Basically, the idea that you look to your left, you look to your right, and you have that same self-affirming opinion. You're exchanging not differences of opinion, you're exchanging confirmations of opinion all around you. And it's kind of like Pauline Kael, the film critic, who said upon the election of Richard Nixon, she said, I don't understand how this guy was elected president. I don't know anyone who supported him. I mean, it's one of those things. Well, Pauline, this lack of self-awareness on your part is probably the circle of friends and fellow film critics that you engage with that tells you that. Well, I don't know anyone who elected him. That tells you maybe I need to broaden my circle of friends. And this is the problem with media, the problem with folks in the media. And this is why there's such a lack of understanding at the New York Times, for instance. The absolute disbelief that the average person, normies, as they call them, you people like you and me, they don't understand our disdain for them because they have imbibed deeply, to use your word, drunk deeply from the well of noxious ideology from the college. They basically based on the college campus where they can find their ultimate confirmation because they're saying it. Some professors are saying this on the college campus. Oh, well, scratch a chin. Our sage gray eminences on the college campuses must know best. When, of course, I can assure you, given my personal experience for more than 20 years on the campuses, no, they do not know best. What they know is basically their own subscription to adherence to a false reality that is constructed by some dead scribbler. The most prominent name, of course, is Karl Marx. But following along behind Karl Marx, yes, of
I
course.
love that dead scribbler. I love that.
Yeah, he's a dead scribbler. That's
I
usually.
want to borrow that.
Please go ahead and take it. It's not mine. I can't remember who said it. It was basically how you describe a dead economist. That someone who is mouthing economic pieties is probably the prisoner of some dead scribbler. And of course, Marx was an economist amongst many other things. He was a bad economist, a bad philosopher. He was bad at pretty much everything he did, certainly earning capital. He lived off of his wife, Jenny von Westphalen, and his buddy, Friedrich Engels, who inherited his money from his dad, who was a factory owner. And the idea that Marx is usually the font of all of this nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
But much of it has been morphed, if you will. The neo-Marxists from the Frankfurt School, and then you have the critical race theorists and the critical legal theorists and the DEI people who basically have taken critical race theory and have applied it. And I will tell you the truth, CharLee. When you look at DEI exposed and the idea what is it I'm exposing on DEI, because people will say, people that I know, people will say, well, DEI, what's wrong with it? How could you possibly be against, quote, diversity? Isn't it just brass
Are you still
ring?
there?
Isn't it just, yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
No, you froze up for a bit. You see, you were saying
Well,
people wanted to explain DEI. Isn't that a good thing? Is where we lost you.
yes. Now they've cut me off. I know they'd probably sabotage me when I started saying that. They say, well, isn't DEI just creating a level playing field for everyone? Isn't it just giving everyone a shot at the brass ring? Isn't it just teaching about race and teaching about slavery? Isn't it just all of those things? How could you possibly be against that? Well, it's none of those things. That is not DEI as it is practiced on the college campuses. But the folks who are adhere to this propaganda, they count on people of goodwill to interpret it that way. If you look at the primary sources of it and how it's actually applied on the campuses, which I have done and which I have shared with you and DEI exposed and quoted chapter and verse and cited the people and quoted the folks with complete context, what they are engaged in is a very noxious psychological resource extraction campaign that psychologists have a name for. They call it virtuous victimhood. It's a DEI scam whereby a certain group of people tries to convince you that you are a villain and that you have victimized them. And as a result, they try to extract resources from you. This is the very definition of a con game, convincing someone of a lie, of a story, and then taking money from you. And this is what DEI proponents on the college campus do. Their ideology, CharLee, their ideology is like one place removed from the ideology of this character right here, Louis Farrakhan. Their ideology is Farrakhan adjacent. They don't believe in American principles of color blindness, of equality, of equal opportunity. No, they believe in a very racialized society in which people are guilty by virtue of the color of their skin.
Many of those same people supported and championed Dr. Martin Luther King, who espoused those virtues, are now completely silent on him. And
yes, they are.
Really talk about
they certainly are. In fact, if you say him, they want to keep his name out of your mouth because you're profaning. Well, they don't want you saying it because if Martin Luther King were alive today, he would certainly not be probably be a Republican. He is certainly not part of the left-wing claque that has pushed this notion of racialism into the mainstream of discourse, where I think it should be pushed out. DEI folks represent the worst that colleges and universities have to offer. It's very akin, they represent the pseudoscience and the magic thinking that we expunged from the university campuses 300 years ago. Got rid of the superstition, got rid of this magic, got rid of the alchemy and astrology, phrenology, got rid of all of that nonsense and really developed hard-won scientific knowledge. The idea that the world is based on logic and reason and progress and humane values, that kind of thing. What we find now is the dark ages are coming back and forcing their way onto the college campuses. That's terrible, absolutely terrible.
It is, and you used the word narcissistic earlier. They're so arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
They're so arrogant. They get paid so well for doing something that's frankly
it's problematic. Yeah,
it's hardcore. And if you're in the high school, junior high, even elementary school level, and you're in public education, you've got an agenda. You've got a what do they call it? Where you follow this. This is what we teach, and this is how we teach it, and we're all going to be teaching the same thing.
Yeah, it's a script that they follow. They learn the script in education schools. The script is noxious. People don't understand what goes on in education schools. And if I were to say, well, it's Marxism, and actually it's so far advanced as to be Maoism, Mao Zedong. Well, that's absurd, Dr. Ridgely. They're not doing that. In fact, their great theorist is not anyone akin to that. It's a man by the name of Paulo Freire, Dr. Paulo Freire, who's a Brazilian education theorist. Well, of course it is. This is how they've laundered Marxism, Maoism into the education schools. Who is Paulo Freire? They revere this guy. He is indeed a Brazilian guy. He has a balding head. He's got a gray beard like Marx. He has a very kindly visage. Well, who was he? Well, his famous book was Pedagogy of the Oppressed, published in 1970, which is the third most cited book in the social sciences. And it's Marxism, Maoism warmed over. Paulo Freire was a Marxist. He was a Maoist. He became a Marxist in exile from Brazil in Peru in the 1960s. He became a Maoist during the Cultural Revolution. He was a fan of Lenin. He was a fan of Stalin. And he said that Mao's Cultural Revolution, which killed several million people, his Cultural Revolution was the most genial solution of the century with regard to re-educating the population. He actually said this. This fellow, Paulo Freire, is revered in education schools. But when you say Freire, people go, oh, okay. Freire. That sounds very good. And they use this name to, so, well, we're the followers of Paulo Freire. Certainly you've never heard of him. Well, I've heard of him. He's a Maoist who cribbed his education theory from the education theory of Mao Zedong. And I highlight this both in Brutal Minds and in DEI Exposed. I call them out on this bullshit. Okay, it's all it is. And they have layered over their Maoism and their Marxism with this fake Brazilian educator, and of course augmented by a number of racialists, Ibram Kendi, Sean Harper, Ta-Nehisi Coates, a number of modern, Bell Hooks is the late Bell Hooks. All of these have a certain racialist perspective that if you dig down deep in it, you find that it is informed by racialism. It's informed by a Manichaean binary that is basically the cornerstone, the foundation stone of fakery from time immemorial. The idea of
I think I can boil it down even more so than that.
Please.
It is anti-God. It's teaching everyone to worship the government. And it's all about the new world order and the one world government that which is they're doing their father's work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. The irony,
God, religion, Christianity is one of their main enemies. It provides a moral basis that they cannot countenance.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but the irony to me is, if they're following Mao Zedong, who is the one who ushered in communism in China, murdered some reported as many as 60 million of his own people. They're always talking about Nazism. Oh, 6 million killed, 60 million. One of the main targets for Mao Zedong were those very people you're describing, the professors, the educators, the teachers, especially the music and the art teachers. They were targeted because they're teaching some thinking on your own and some artistic expression. That's not what Mao wanted. Mao wanted a compliant population that we're all going to dress the same, and they did for many years until Richard Nixon opened things up and it started expanding some there. But all the buildings looked the same, all the people looked the same. You were the same, and you were all part of that collective mind hive of communism. So here we have professors championing that, where if it did become a total reality, they would be some of the first ones taken out. Yeah.
That's certainly, you have really laid it all out there. The enemy of these folks is basically religion, is God, is basically faith in something larger than yourself that competes with the secular religion that we find on the college campuses. And the fact that this DEI is part and parcel of the social justice agenda, whereby they fight against what is social justice? Well, this is the fight against oppression in all its forms, individual oppression, systemic oppression. When you strip it all down and you get right down to the fundamentals of social justice, this is what they say. There's nothing beyond this. They're fighting for this idea of equity, this idea of equality, and they're going to do what it takes to impose this type of equality, equity on the populace. In this regard, this means confiscation of wealth and redistribution of wealth.
Yes.
This has been the modus operandi of totalitarians throughout history, that they're going to impose from above this plan that is going to make us all equal. The Soviet Union tried it. China tried it.
And how many of these professors and admin people are making six-figure incomes? Again, they're battling for the very thing that will dismantle what they have built.
They certainly are. The salaries of these people are phenomenal, especially, say, the University of California at Berkeley, where Judith Butler, the gender bender lady, and her partner, Wendy Brown, are both professors. They both making lavish six-figure salaries, who are, raking in the benefits of a free market economic system whereby they're being paid what someone has determined that they are worth, and they enhance their value by what they say and what they do. The idea that parents are footing the bill and students are footing the bill for some of this nonsense, really, we do not make that connection. The folks who are
We're
paying
footing the
don't
bill
want that
too.
connection.
We're
Say
footing the
again?
bill too. But we're footing the bill too. I've never
Oh,
understood
yeah.
why these colleges and universities are getting federal funds, our tax dollars, to continue this. I've never understood that. And I thought, you're going to make it on your own, or you're not. You're going to provide a good quality education that people are going to desire and want to give you that money, or you're not. Why are we giving any college or university federal funds?
Well, that usually the crutch that they lean on has to do with research and research grants. And whenever you attack the notion of federal funding, the folks who are defending this process usually point over here at the medical research. They point at engineering research. They'll point at scientific research. They don't point over here at the research into gender, research into foreign grants to researchers to study AIDS spread in Africa, that type of thing. The type of thing that the impact of gender on high school students of a queer nature, that kind of thing. The ludicrous stuff. They always point to the hard sciences, math and science, computers, that kind of research as being the kind of research that they're defending. Broadly based, the defense that you'll hear is academic freedom. And you'll hear the bureaucratic response of academic freedom. You're attacking academic freedom without addressing, the specific charge that what you're doing here is not something really I want to pay for. They won't address the specific. They'll move up what's called the ladder of abstraction and make it really abstract and say, oh, you're attacking academic freedom. You say, well, no, I'm not. I'm attacking your funding, our funding of this particular absurdity that I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay these strangely credentialed faculty members six-figure salaries. I don't want to pay DEI officers like Tobias Chavous Sellers at the University of Michigan. I don't want to pay her $431,000 a year to push paper back and forth about DEI at Michigan. I don't want to pay Dania Matos at, I think it's UCal, one of the UCal's, Riverside or Irvine. I don't want to pay her $350,000 to push paper back and forth and to, as she said, quote, lead with love. And also said that every time I face discrimination here at UC Irvine, it breaks my heart into 1,000 pieces, and I have to pick it all up again. I'm sure that's made a lot easier with her $350,000 a year salary.
You can hire somebody to walk behind her and pick up the pieces of her heart.
You can do that. Yes. The point being, of course, is that how much racism are you facing at University of California?
Exactly. That was my question. Oh, really? You encounter that a lot, do you, in your little bubble?
One of the chief examples I use, CharLee, in the book DEI Exposed, you'll find lots of them. And this is the chief example, is Princeton University. In 2020, after the unfortunate death of the felon in the city of Minneapolis, there were riots nationwide, causing over $2 billion in damages. Well, the university presidents didn't want that kind of violence coming to the campuses. At Princeton University on July 4th, 2020, 300 faculty and staff signed an open letter about Princeton saying, there's rampant racism here at Princeton, and we renounce this heritage of racism, and we demand from President Eisgruber to do this, and this because of this rampant racism. Well, a journalist by the name of Connor Friedersdorf at The Atlantic, of all places, did the most obvious thing in the world. He did an investigative piece where he contacted and asked over 300 signatories, every single signatory of that letter, can you give me an example from Princeton University over the previous 15 years of overt racism? Can you do that? He asked 300 people, can you think of an example over the last 15 years? And he got not one answer, not one. Whereas if you were to sign a letter, you'd think, well, there must be, 3 or 4 from the last, say 2 or 3 years. Certainly we could point, not a single answer, which led, of course, Randall Kennedy, who was a Black law professor at Harvard University, who wrote an article for the Chronicle of Higher Education, a Harvard Business Review, who said, Why are you spending your energy on these on the campuses? Campuses are the least racist places in America, and yet this is where you're focusing your energy. Do something else. So this is absolutely absurd. This fraud, and we say DEI con. This is what I mean. This is by getting people to buy into. You got 300 influential signatories at Princeton University signing a letter that claims there's this rampant racism, got people to buy into that. And hey, we want to make changes and give you reparations for something that doesn't exist. That, in a nutshell, is what the problem is on our campuses with regard
propaganda.
to
it's pure communist propaganda. Unbelievable.
It certainly is. And I think that it behooves us to understand, and this is why I wrote the book DEI Exposed, to understand what motivates these people, why it's a con, why it's a fraud, why it's not just teaching about slavery. It's just teaching about race. That's what they say up front. But what they actually do is propound an ideology, a racialist, noxious, discriminatory ideology that is based on racialism. And it's one of those things where, you and I, CharLee, we see a stranger coming at us down the street. We usually don't make too many judgments about that person. We can maybe, if we're in a bad part of town, or if we're just, say, downtown Jacksonville, downtown Sacramento, someone's coming towards us. We don't know. Oh, that's the person. But if you are one of these DEI racialists, you already know about this person. Everything you know about. Everything you need to know about this person is you are told with your ideology. This person is either a villain or a victim by virtue of that person's race. This, at bottom, is DEI. And this is what they say. This is what they do. And I detail it, cite it verbatim by chapter and verse in DEI Exposed.
Posturing, victimhood posturing. Isn't that what you said earlier?
Yes, it's called virtuous victimhood. So that's what psychologists call it.
Virtuous
victimhood. It means that, hey, if I can convince someone that I'm a victim and they're a villain, I can extract resources. This is what psychologists call a resource extraction strategy. It's what a fortune teller does. A fortune teller, you go in to see a fortune teller will tell you a story and try to get you to believe it so that you will then pay them money. That's DEI is basically fortune telling. Fortune telling is a resource extraction strategy. And the psychology of frauds and con games has been studied ad infinitum. Maria Konnikova is a faculty member at Columbia University, a good faculty member who studied con games and con artists and their techniques and how they get people to believe the most absurd things so that they can then make them vulnerable so that they can then extract reparations from them or money from them, resources from them. And this is what DEI is all about. It's about making money. And how much money are we talking about? It's a $10 billion a year industry, if you count higher education and corporate America as well.
Billion with a B. As a professor at Drexel, I can only imagine the oppression that you have encountered there. I can only imagine, seriously. And they're lucky to have you. They're blessed to have somebody like you, a free thinker like you. On the right, we're divorcing ourselves from public education. Many on the right are now homeschooling, but yet the public education responds, especially here in California, by just pumping more money into it, which is ultimately our tax dollars. So either way, we're having to pay for it, even if we're not getting the benefit of an education, or as many parents, unfortunately, look at education now as a babysitter. It's their babysitter. Send the kids off to school so I have some free time. But the education is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and more expensive as teachers are taking off teacher training days and so on. Well, why don't you do that in the summer? No, they have to do it right in the middle of school's in session, and they get paid for that entire day or even 2 days. It's crazy. Teacher prep day it comes to mind, where all of a sudden you're depending on the schools to be taking care of and babysitting your kid for 6 hours at least. Yep. Now you got to scramble to find somebody else to take care of your child because we're all having to work. especially here in California. I feel
Yeah.
so sorry for single parents who don't have the funds to even be able to explore other schools other than public education. And that it's like we're trapped, aren't we? And you got to educate your child. Okay, I'm going to turn them over to this group of teachers at this particular school in the district where I live, and I'm going to
Mhm.
count on you not to ruin them. But they're all being ruined in massive numbers, and this is part of the Communist Manifesto. If you can control the youth and get the minds of the youth, you could destroy a nation or topple down our constitutional republic within a generation or two. That is
Yeah, that's
absolutely
true.
on the agenda.
Vladimir Lenin, said this explicitly: "Give me the children for a generation," and we can expunge these notions of tradition. We can expunge these notions of religion. You do know, of course, anyone who is on our particular side in terms of when I speak politically, knows the unfortunate history of socialism slash communism, both in the Soviet Union and in communist China and in Vietnam, and what thankfully Vietnam has kind of flung off the ideological constraints, but the unfortunate history of Pol Pot in Cambodia, and certainly Fidel Castro, Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua. And you've got, I had to do that, by the way. I said Nicaragua because that's what a lot of our left-wing friends do whenever you want to
They
use
always do. They roll their R's like all of a sudden
that.
they're fluent in Spanish.
I did that for you and your audience. I thought you'd
Ay,
appreciate
ay, ay.
that. Talking about Daniel Ortega down in Nicaragua.
Right.
And
The
now
media does that too. It
in
cracks me up.
Venezuela with Nicolas Maduro. And the legacy of Hugo Chavez. I think that our own president right now is showing that he means business with regard to Venezuela. Venezuela, is one of the richest, if not the richest country in South America before the socialists took over. Oil-rich nation, and no reason why it shouldn't, go back to that posture. But the socialism ruined that country, and
They
it's certainly
stole
going to
that
ruin
election too.
Oh yeah.
Stole.
But you're talking about public education. There are a lot of opportunities, alternatives to that. My wife was a public school teacher. She was a private school teacher, a homeschooler, and taught at classical Christian school, various science, as a matter of fact, in various manifestations. And I can tell you that I know an awful lot about the public schools. Wish that I didn't know it. That she laments the fact that many school teachers are too much engaged in teaching about identity and gender and sexuality and racism and racialism, rather than inculcating, say, math, reading, writing, arithmetic, math skills, skill-based education, and then trying to claim that math can be racist according to the examples. It's that whole literature that
That's
is.
right.
Yeah, it's a whole literature.
Math
That's
was racist. That's right.
Anything that someone who is a member of a racialized minority cannot do well is inevitably attributed to some sort of systemic disparity. And the teaching or the instruction or that particular activity has got to be changed until that particular group can come up to speed. Never mind that Indian Americans and the Asian Americans and the South Pacific Islanders have no problem whatsoever. If you want to group disparities, look at those particular groups, and you'll find.
And they're being excluded now, aren't they?
They certainly are. Certainly in California, where you are, in terms of the quotas.
Yeah.
That maximum number of Asians who can go to particular schools in the University of California system, and I find it some of the stuff coming out of California is absolutely absurd, with the fact that you've got, we want to increase the numbers of our black students at our schools because without looking at the pool of students that you have to draw from. And so they're trying to compare, say, these 13 to 14% of blacks in America, saying that our student population should reflect that, whenever the population of black potential students in California is far lower than that. And that's the population from which we draw. Moreover, we look at the Asian population of California is far greater than what it is in the national population. And they're saying, we can't have too many Asians coming to us. They're overrepresented. Well, no, not by comparison to their population representation in our state. So we find this constant juggling of metrics based on what the noxious left-wing DEI folks want to accomplish. And then and they'll find a metric that can justify what it is they're trying to accomplish. You've got some real dastardly folks out there in California, I'll say.
And if you grade on a curve, sorry for speaking in generalizations, but if you grade on a curve, the Asian students are making all of us look stupid.
Well, if you look at the group of students who won the international math competition against China, the ones that the U.S. students were all U.S. citizens, but they're all of Chinese descent, Asian descent, I should probably Japanese as well. Beat the Chinese at their own game. One of these things where they don't allow a negative stereotype or a stereotype prevent you from seeing what's in front of you. I think it was Ronald Reagan who once said, "Don't be afraid to see what you see," and that sounds simplistic, but it's one of those things where there are many people on the left want you to believe, traditional definition of gaslighting. They want you to disbelieve the evidence in front of you. I had one of these people many years ago. I somehow got trapped in a conversation. There's several people there, and I got trapped in a conversation with this woman who was a graduate student in education at the University of Pennsylvania. And I cannot convey to you, perhaps you've talked to someone this way who is effervescent with what they've learned in graduate school, getting a graduate degree in education. And the University of Pennsylvania is one of the worst. And I can name names if you like. Mary Beth Gassman, who used to be there, Sean Harper used to be there. They're terrible. They're terrible. But she was saying to me, it's just we're learning all this great stuff. And I said, well, actually, in terms of crime here in Philadelphia, in terms of the underprivileged, et cetera, it's very interesting what you're saying. I mean, I live in a neighborhood where the crime is rampant. I've been personally the victim of crime and burglary and bike thefts, car thefts in my neighborhood. She said, well, I said, so what is your professor who's telling you how the neighborhoods are in Philadelphia? That was my point. Her professor was telling her how the neighborhoods were and what the problems were. I said, I'm telling you what the problems are. I have a PhD in international relations from Duke University, and I'm telling you this. She says, well, everyone in that neighborhood is a victim. I'm saying, you're telling me what my neighborhood's like? You're telling me based on what some professor at Penn said, who's never visited my neighborhood. This is what I mean by taking a philosophical construct that you believe this is reality over here, and you're going to believe that rather than the evidence of your lived, as they like to say, your lived experience. And this woman is saying, no, you're wrong. Your lived experience is wrong. That these people everyone's a victim. I said, am I a victim? Well, no, you're not a victim. You know, you're not a victim because you're a member of a dominant race. It was unbelievable. Maybe you've met this kind of person who's basically subscribing to this kind of thing. She's probably used to speaking to some person who's never heard this stuff before. And, I never thought about that. But the idea that an education professor at the University of Pennsylvania is teaching people about who the villains are and who the victims are in Philadelphia in various neighborhoods, and then gets on the train to go out to the suburbs and never experiences this for himself. It's absolutely absurd. I lived for 12 years in a Black majority neighborhood in West Philadelphia. And so I lived and breathed the atmosphere of crime-ridden Philadelphia. Philadelphia, the poorest big city in America with a 25% poverty rate, 70 consecutive years of Democrat rule, high taxes, high crime. It's amazing. It's utterly amazing. And yet the people there continue to vote year in and year out for the Democratic machine that runs.
That's the most frustrating thing for me.
Yeah.
And your books, Brutal Minds and also DEI Exposed, are going to get an audience with people like me. But how much of an influence can that be, or can we be, to people who don't even want to hear a thing that we have to say?
Well, the people who don't want to hear it that's not the audience. The ones who absolutely need to hear it, it's not the audience. There's a group of people out there who need to know. They need to know what their kids are going to face when they go to college. They need to understand the arguments that delegitimize DEI. Look here, up here is DEI Exposed, and up here is Brutal Minds. Brutal Minds is a wonderful guide for students and parents to negotiate these brainwashers / indoctrinators on the college campus, and they are there. And I cite them chapter and verse. Here's what they say. Here's what they do. Their patron saint is Paulo Freire, a dedicated Maoist who cribbed all of his education theory from Mao Zedong. Here's what you do to defend yourself. I'm not trying to reform higher education. I try to show students and parents what they can do right now, today, to defend yourself and defeat these folks. As far as DEI Exposed, I think it's important that we strip away the masquerade and the fakery of what DEI actually is, so that we can begin to say, I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of that at all. And you can get both of these books on Amazon. In fact, Brutal Minds comes in comes hardback, comes in Kindle and Audible, which people really love because they can work out and spend 8 hours with me talking to them. And DEI Exposed comes in 4 formats. It's on Amazon as well. Comes in Audible, of course, and comes in paperback, hardback, and Kindle. And I think that the audience is basically people who are misinformed or ill-informed or simply ignorant of what these things actually are. And all they need is a bit of guidance by saying, look, I read these articles all the time by the left. I mean, this is more reading than I do of our own people on our side. And I know these people inside and out. On the campuses, I go to they don't have them anymore because of the current administration, but I go to every DEI training session I could find. I didn't boycott them. I went to them to become a hip pocket expert on what these people are actually saying and doing. These people have gone to ground. Now it's hard pressed to find anyone who actually supported DEI in the last 5 years on a college campus, except they'll do it behind closed doors. And so I do that so that the average person doesn't have to do that. And I distill what I find by quotations. I'll cite it. You can go look it up. If you don't believe me, you can look it up because it's a completely cited chapter and verse. And I let them speak for themselves. And then you can make your own informed decision about what to do.
We've got to start thinking, putting some critical thought into all of this about what's going to be the effect if we continue the way we've gone on the future, because I guarantee you on the left of the Communist Manifesto, again, they're looking 10, 50, 100 years down the road. Here's going to be the effect if we do this now. And if we let them, and if we can sell them on it, and we can get away with this indoctrination, which is what it is, brainwashing, in a more base term, which is what it is. That's how they think. That's how they look. We don't. We're kind of like more reactionary. Well, we got to fix this right now. Well, yeah, that and a few other things. We need to start paying attention, I think, is the best advice I could give to anybody, and start by reading these kind of books from Dr. Stanley Ridgely, Brutal Minds and DEI Exposed. Have you had the media reaching out and going, hey, we want to help you promote these books, or has it been radio silence?
Well, the books have been well reviewed by the folks on in the conservative media, and I've been on Newsmax, and I've been on Sam Sorbo's show, been on a lot of podcasts, and a lot of like yours right here, just basically saying, look, here's the evidence. Here, just read the book, inform yourself, and virtually every single criticism of the book, if you go on Amazon, you'll find people giving it 1 star. Their criticism is basically uninformed, either lying, misrepresenting the book for obvious reasons. They don't want people understanding or getting the facts, and arming themselves, because forewarned is forearmed. And I think that once parents and students find out that what they're doing on the college campus it's not benign. It's not, oh, come on, anodyne material. Come on.
Not by accident either.
No. It's not by accident at all. And they get better at what they're doing year in and year out, because that's what they do.
Because we're funding them.
Exactly. And they have a new iteration of college students coming in, fresh meat, fresh meat. And, in the book, I say this, how do they perceive college students? Well, the freshman year is an important time where students are fearful, still afraid of authority, and are ready to imbibe deeply of what they hear. And so this is what they do, and this is why they look at student orientation as a time of opportunity where they grab them. And this is also why they try to decouple students from their parents during this important time frame. You'll hear them say, oh, we don't want the parents getting involved with this because they have to socialize. That's not the reason.
Don't tell your parents. They're not cool. They won't understand.
Exactly. And this is why they go home. Students go home at Thanksgiving and they seem so angry, et cetera, because they've been exposed to this crap. And I say crap, and I mean that quite literally. It's crap. It's dogma. It's crap. It doesn't show both sides of anything. It is not an accident either. It provides a discovered truth that's designed to channel these college students along to a new belief system. It is a brainwashing program that is psychological manipulation, behavior modification, designed to change their belief system. That, in a nutshell, is what Brutal Minds is all about. And I show how they do it, who's doing it, and name names, name schools. I don't know how much more I could do than to say, hey, here's what they're doing, here's who's doing it, here's where they're doing it, and here's what you can do to stop it today. I wish that every student and every parent could read these books. And I think we could see a sea change, because students would just say, you know what, get out of here. You don't have the right to do this to me. And if you continue, I'm going to report you to the Office of Civil Rights and get a Department of Justice investigation going down here. Is that what you really want? I think not.
They'll just wait you out. That's what they do. It's another little trick. They just know, well, we have to deal with Trump now, but we'll just wait it out. We'll just lay low. We'll act like we're not doing what we're doing. I want to see all federal funding of any kind of education system stopped. You're either going to make it on your own or you're not. I don't know. How many other businesses can you think of that the government is giving them money to stay in business?
I'll tell you, Charles, CharLee, there's a technique in business, because I do teach in a business school, technique in business called zero-based budgeting. And it's like we take your budget back down to zero. Okay. And now what we're going to do is you're going to prove to me that you need money for this activity, this activity, this activity. So you take federal funding down to zero. Not saying we're not going to fund you. We're going to take it down to zero. Now you have to apply and justify each of these programs, and you will be reevaluated on the worth and value added of these programs. That might be a nice mid-range solution where you and I can agree on that.
LGBTQ basket weaving needs to go.
Nope.
If students aren't going to sign up for it, you're not going to make any money. That's where you cut them off at the knees, is through.
Yes, it is. Funding. Yes, it is. Gender stuff. Nope.
Yep. It's got to go. Wow. I value you so much. It was such an honor and privilege, and I was really pleasantly surprised when I reached out to you and you said, yeah, I'll be on your little old show. So sure. This Dr. Stanley Ridgely, do you have a website or anything, by the way, where we can find out a little bit more about you?
I have a website called brutalminds.com. One word, brutalminds.com. And you can buy my books there if you want to. I have a lot of my writing.
As a matter of fact, I'd rather see them buy your books through your website than send them to Amazon, which.
Wait, send them to Amazon.
It does. Oh, it's a link.
Yeah. Well, the thing is also, if you really want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, like you and I are connected on LinkedIn. I do a lot of my work there, and on. I'm actually a recent participant in Twitter now. I put myself on Twitter, mainly focused on education, higher education. That's my bailiwick. And so, if you're really interested in what I have to say about education, higher education in real time, LinkedIn and Twitter are the places to go. So reach out to me and I'll link up with you.
Thank you, sir. It was an honor and a privilege. I really appreciate your time. I'd love to have you on again. I hope you had a good time, because I'd like to have you on again.
At a real time. I love talking. You can ask my wife. She'll tell you I love talking, and I love talking about this type of good material. And it's great being on your show, CharLee. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. There you go. those are your marching orders today. Get Dr. Stanley Ridgely's books, Brutal Minds and DEI Exposed, and do it through his website, brutalminds.com. Encourage these kind of people, support them, because I'm telling you what, they get slings and arrows from the left all the time. And I'd love to see us start encouraging each other more. We got to support each other and lift each other up. I am CharLee Simons. You can reach me through my website, charliesimons.com. Pretty simple, but you got to spell it right. CharLee, because my name's Charles Lee. Simons with one M and an S on the end. Don't make me Richard Simmons. No, Simons, S-I-M. But Simmons is two M's. I couldn't afford both M's, so I just have one. charliesimons.com. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America, but most importantly, America bless God.